Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing my September wrap up. For the month of September, I kind of eased down on my total from last month. I read a total of 7 books this month and had a total of 4 DNFs. Let's just jump right into it. The DNFs first, as always. First up would be Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent. Now, this has neurodivergent representation for our main character. Part of the premise sounded very intriguing. Our main character, Sally, the first part of the premise, if you read it on Goodreads, is that her father passes away and she put him out with the bins. She did not understand why that was a problem. So I thought I was reading a story about a neurodivergent character and how she copes and deals with life living with, we don't know what she has yet. All we know is that she's neurodivergent, has a traumatic past, and the trauma from her childhood is apparently what has caused her to be neurodivergent. Now, I did not, and this is the content warning for this book and the whole reason I DNF'd it, I did not know that I was getting graphically descriptive traumatic scenes, and it stays there most of the story. Most of the story becomes that. It's not like this is what happened and it's like a snippet or like a brief kind of playthrough on the horrific things that happened in the past. And okay, like this is why you are the way you are. This is a picture of it. It's kind of talked about once, and then we move on to life now. But no, the whole book is the trauma. It's very dark and heavily oppressive, and that is why I DNF'd it. I could feel the darkness. That's why I said it's oppressive. It's not just, oh, this is dark. It's oppressively dark, and I protect my spirit. I protect my mind, and I'm not taking that in. I'm not going to stay in that. So, DNF. Next DNF was Fire with Fire by Destiny Soria. The whole reason I did not get far through this, and I didn't need to, it reads like a middle grade, first of all, so just in case you didn't know, I didn't know that. I thought it was YA. It's a middle grade. And not only does it read like a middle grade, when I think it's supposed to be YA, but it just doesn't read that way at all. Our characters are starting to take the Lord's name in vain, like immediately, and I don't tolerate that. It physically pains me, and I do not read or listen to or watch anything that takes the Lord's name in vain over and over again, or in a way that is just like, okay, why was that even there? They just said that to fill in space. Next up would be The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon. This is a historical mystery surrounding the life and diary of Martha Ballard. She was an 18th century midwife who defied the legal system and wrote herself into American history. Now, this is a soft DNF because I just wasn't in the right headspace for it. Hard. It's just like a hard knock life in the story, really. So it's kind of like if it was fantasy, it'd be grimdark, and I have to be in the right place for that. But like the audio was good, so I may go back to the audio. It may be something I want to read like physically. I don't know. I'll figure it out when that comes. But I had never heard of this woman before, and I'm always looking for historical fiction that is other than World War II, because most of it is World War II based. So this pulled me in simply because it was different. And last DNF would be Northwoods by Amy Pease. This was a debut novel, and of course debut novels deserve grace. It's the beginning, it's the first step. The reason I DNF'd this, well, first off, this is a detective crime thriller. It's supposed to be a thriller. I wasn't thrilled. I think I got halfway through this and I was like, listen, I was like, I just can't do it anymore. Set in the Midwest, and it ties into the opioid epidemic that's happening in America. The premise of this gave me Longmire vibes, and I love Longmire. Longmire is my favorite TV series, one of my favorite TV series of all time. It wasn't. Like, once I got into it, I realized, okay, you can't, like, they're not the same things at all. I wanted the environment and like nature to kind of take a, you know, especially when you're in a setting. I want the setting to be atmospheric and be a character. in and of itself, and I knew that's not what this kind of story was, so I didn't have that expectation. But the main reason I DNF'd this is because the dialogue between the characters was lacking a lot. I thought the idea was great, but like, if I was this person's editor, what would happen if we explored more depth into the characters and how they see each other, how do they interact, their feelings, like, because this felt more juvenile. It felt like, again, it's like a draft, like that's not fully completed. It's more juvenile dialogue. It's there's no real depth in the communication and the conversing back and forth between, not even some, like all the characters felt like that to me. It was more like telly, not showy, and I don't like that type of writing. All right, let's get right into the books. First up is Middle Tide by Sarah Crouch. This again was a debut. Debuts get grace, as always. The premise of this says it's a gripping atmospheric murder mystery set in a small town. And the body of one of the town's residents is found hanging from a tree, and it looks like suicide, but upon further investigation, it becomes clear that it was more. It looks more than that. So now it's like, okay, a murder to make look like a suicide. What's really going on? We have two main like characters in this, and our guy is Eli. His name is Eli, and he's a failed writer. He's returning home after his father has passed away, and once he's back home, because he's a failed writer, he has to have somewhere to live, and since his father passed away, he is now restoring his father's home, his childhood home, basically. He becomes a suspect naturally because the victim was found on his property. There's an old flame that he meets up with again. Her name is Nikita. Past there where he hurt her when they were kids, and now he's back, and communication is just not his strong suit. Dismissiveness, a lot of that. Now, one thing about Nikita, I did like Nikita, okay? She was the one I liked because she was the character that had the most depth, and she happened to be, she's Native American. And so this story takes place like in this town that's like where he's from is on the outskirts of the Native American reservation. Now, what makes this unique is that her father is the preacher on the reservation, but this Native American reservation, all these Native American people have converted to Christianity. So this is a whole tribe that has converted to Christianity, which is different. It's unique. It's a huge thing in the story. But guess what? There was nothing touched on this. Nothing was touched on this, okay? You want to talk about a missed opportunity. There are several missed opportunities in this book. This is supposed to be atmospheric. It is set in the state of Washington, and there was nothing about this that made me remember that I was even in that environment, other than a couple scenes. But it should be, like I said before, atmosphere, the setting should be a character. You should know where you are, feel it. It should be literally a character within the story. It didn't exist here. That missed opportunity there. It was a missed opportunity to really talk about this Native American tribe that has converted to Christianity and how they, in their life, things that, what's different for them, how, like, their history, and nothing, I mean, nothing was talked about. Nothing. How, like, how, you can't do that. How could you do that? So I was like agitated. It's Native American rep. I haven't read any story with Native American representation. You know how hard that is to find? So then you're going to have a story that includes Native American people and put a different twist on it and not even talk about it, not even include that as an intriguing, like, little side plot. What? No. I was like, if someone was editing this book, how did they not tell our author, listen, can we explore, we need to explore this. This is completely a huge, intriguing point. We need to go here. How did they not do that? So that was a huge, just, I wasn't okay with. The second reason I didn't get on with this was, or the third reason really, atmosphere, missed opportunity with the Native American people in this. And the third reason was I did not like our main character, Eli. He was just an overgrown child. It was like he was stuck as a teenager. He was literally stuck being a teenager. There was no character growth from him. And he did not, I didn't understand what she saw in him or why she was like going back to him, or their relationship didn't make sense to me because there was nothing there for me to see that it would make sense. There was literally nothing in that relationship for me to understand, and like for me to understand why, even as a kid, because I was like, okay, why? Like, you're not giving me any details, connection details. Like because there was none. I gave this 3 stars simply because the writing was good. What was written was good writing. I just think that and as a debut, I really hope that our author that she grows and gets better. But I really hope that things, more depth and like growth, can be added in, and don't miss such a huge, intriguing point. It just irks me to missed opportunities like that are like in your face as well. It's like, ugh. Next up is Ordinary Grace by William Kent Kruger. This is a coming of age story with a murder mystery plot set in small town Minnesota in the summer of 1961. So the writing for this was telly, not showy, and again, I don't like that. However, I liked the pacing for this. And the narrators for the audiobook, their way of telling it was spot on. I thought that was a great job. Another thing I liked about this was that the title, Ordinary Grace, has a clear-cut reason in the story why it's named that title. And I love it when that happens, when you're in the story and all of a sudden the name of the title, you have clarity and context, and like, this is the reason why it's named that. And this was like right in your face. Oh, there it is. This is surrounding a minister and his family. We are in one of the kids' points of views. I don't remember how old he is, but we stay there. There's too many things that were not fleshed out in this. You know, like our minister dad doesn't have the emotional depth. Like he missed our author missed an opportunity to really go into his life more, into his emotional, like his emotions. Like literally the whole time, anything that happened, I was like, where are you? Who are you? It was more like just a monotone way of being. He has PTSD from the war, and it's only like verbally said that like certain things that affect his PTSD, like from the kid's point of view, when he knows that his dad has PTSD, and when certain things happen, he like his father, like he'll see his father freeze or something like that. But no, like it's not touched on enough at all. There just wasn't enough spotlight on our minister dad. And I think that particularly since that he was like a pinnacle figure of this town as well, and in what the crazy things that happen in this story, traumatic and life-changing. And it's just, I thought his character should have been written a lot differently. I gave this one 3 stars. Content warning for this one as well is there is a scene in here where there is an animal death for literally no reason, and I can't abide that. It was like, you know, this one character is like the equivalent of he's a bully and is taking it out on an innocent being, and the innocent animal was a frog, and to this character's like, it's just a frog. But what he did, I'm not gonna say what he did, but I am gonna say that came out of nowhere. It's in there, it's one thing, and I don't like it. No. Next up would be I Need You to Read This by Jessa Maxwell. This one is a murder mystery about an advice columnist who is searching for answers about her predecessor's murder. The murderer was never found, and she has now taken her spot and basically living in her shadow. She sort of starts her own investigations, and you know, this columnist she was always so fond of. This was just a meh read. I wasn't really thrilled. It was like the writing was good. I thought the writing, what was written was like, yeah, the writing of this is pretty good. For the murder part, the murder mystery part of this, it just wasn't thrilling or intriguing enough for me. And there wasn't really a surprise or anything like that. Like, you kind of know. There was a twist at the end where it was like supposed to be, I think it was trying too hard to be shocking, but I just wasn't thrilled with this. Content warnings for this would be narcissistic abuse and PTSD. Gave this one 3 stars. Next up is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. Our guy MC has what's called face blindness, and when I first so the first time I read this, I thought that was really intriguing. So we have some representation just in terms of that. Domestic suspense thriller. That's what this is. We're following a married couple who wins a weekend away. Their marriage is on the rocks, and maybe this weekend will save it. That's someone in the party. That's one of their plans. But they get trapped due to a snowstorm in the Scottish Highlands, filled with twists. So many twists, like at the end, twist after twist after twist after twist. You get like whiplash, but it's the good kind. It's the good kind of whiplash. That's why I loved it, and that's why I love Daisy Darker so much. I was shocked at some of these twists that happened at the end, and I listened to it more than once because obviously this is like, I don't even know what number of reread this is for me, because I've listened to the audiobook for this a lot, and every single time I pick up something new because there's so many things. I was like, oh my gosh, that's something new, and it's like my umpteenth time listening to this. Fair warning that our characters in this are not likable, okay? They're not likable. So if you need that in a story to get on with it, then this wouldn't be for you. The only character in this that is likable would be Bob the dog. And Bob, like, nothing happens to Bob. Bob stays perfect the entire time. The reason you may not like this, if this bothers you, is that all the twists, everything happens, it feels rushed. Like, so many things happen so fast near the end of the book that you don't really get to sit with what's happening. It literally is like whiplash. It's back to back to back to back. So that would be my only takeaway. That would be my only thing to say about this that I didn't like, because I agree with some people who don't get on with it, is that it's just the pacing at the end with the twist. It's just too fast. I still give this 5 stars because of how it made me feel. And it still makes me feel that way even after listening to it, because I loved how Alice Feeney writes the plot, the twists, and how she kind of weaves the plot together and weaves in the twists, and thinking up these twists alone is like magnificent. It's a magnificent thing to be able to do up here. Next up, book number 5 and number 6 is book 15 and 16 in the Stephanie Plum Bounty Hunter series, Fingerlicking 15 and Sizzling 16 by Janet Evanovich. As you all know, I'm going through this series, and I guess really it's been up until the past, like the last 3 books that I've read, where the star rating has dropped, because this is a feel-good, like funny storyline. But now that's usually been a 5 to 4 star, you know. The first few books were 5 stars off the bat. Then it started going to a 4. Now these 2 or 3 stars, because what I'm not liking about it anymore is that, and I knew this going in, I'm like, all right, you've got like 30 something books in this series. The momentum, you can't stay up here on this momentum train. Like, it's gonna come down, and it has. And it's because that she has written the series where you could just pick up a book in the series no matter where in the series it is, and you would be able to read it. The problem with it is that it's repetitive. She has to keep, and the way it's written, it's just the way it's written. I think it could have been written in a way where it didn't seem repetitive, because another series, Deanna Raybourn, the Veronica Speedwell series, hers, it wasn't so repetitive, so I think it's just how it's being written. But in this, it's like Stephanie is repeating the same things in a different, like using different verbiage, and the same things keeps happening to her. Where at first it's like, it's like endearing because it's like, gosh, her character is just a disaster magnet. But it's literally the same things that are happening to her that are probably going to be included in every single one. You know, the relationships, like one relationship, there's kind of like a love triangle going on now, and in one, guys, it's very anticlimactic. Really, like, it didn't match the character. Like, we're talking about someone, it ended up just being written in a more like mundane, mediocre way, and this character is not that at all. I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? So yeah, lately for the last three to four that I've read, it's just been 3 stars. You know, like, it still has that feel good like story in its certain aspects, but as a whole now it's starting to lose its momentum for me. And lastly, The Diamond Eye by Kate Quinn. This is a historical fiction, and I do plan on reading everything that Kate Quinn has written. This is based on a true story about a librarian who becomes history's deadliest female sniper. Set during World War II, Kate Quinn writes World War II historical fiction. Just so you know. Main character, her name is Mila Pavlichenko. She becomes a lethal hunter of the Nazis, aka Lady Death. I love the in-depth details that Kate Quinn explains in the author's note, because I do recommend, if you listen to this or read this, read the author's note at the end. She really goes into so much explanation on what she kept from history, what she kind of weaved in and embellished a little bit, any type of add-ins and why. And you always learn so many tidbits from authors who really put in the research into their story. What I didn't like about this was that the pacing was too fast. It kept my attachment to the characters more at a minimum. The reason I like this was the plot. I'm a character, I need a balance of both plot and character driven narrative. I can't have just one or the other. There needs to be a fine dance of both. But in this, that was missing for me. I needed more, a little less plot and more of our characters. And the thing is, I'm not even gonna say a little less plot. What I think should have happened was the book should have been longer. The first book I ever read by Kate Quinn was The Rose Code, and that was a long book. That was a you know, a thick one. But it worked because there was nothing left out of that. It's one of my favorite historical fictions, one of my favorite books. That was a 5-star. If this was longer, it could have been a 5-star read for me. Is off in the war, becoming a sniper, the deadliest sniper ever. She has a son that her parents are raising back at home, and apparently they're writing letters to each other, and she's doing something special. And she's doing like this something special for her son that she's like including in the letter, but we never get to hear anything about what the letter says from her son. Like, this is a child whose mother, he doesn't have a father. He's being raised by his grandparents, and his mother is a sniper in a war. Like, does he know where she is, what she's doing? How is he communicating with her? His emotional life, like, there's nothing about her son touched on. And not enough on her relationship as well, because she ends up, there's 2 relationships that are explored in this book, and the one is like who she ends up with, the losses, and then her sniper partner. And there wasn't enough, like, them two, I wanted more of them. And I was like, yeah, this is good. There is this emotional depth that we're getting. There is this connection and understanding of that type of situation and what is needed. But again, it wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. I gave this 4 stars. I will also say it was a 3.5, and it got bumped to 4 stars because this just shows how good Kate Quinn's writing is. Her writing is so good that even though I wasn't attached to the characters, for me, I still got emotional and teary-eyed when something happened in the end, near the end. Something happened. I was like, okay, this just shows I'm getting teary-eyed with not even that much attachment, because I'm able to build it up in my own mind, in my own head, but her writing is so good that it still allowed that to happen. That's what I mean. If she would have made this book longer, I would have been bawling. And I want to feel. That's the whole point. Like, I wanted to really bawl and cry and feel what was happening. And I felt it even with not getting everything that I needed. So I think it was a missed opportunity in that regard. But I mean, clearly it's a 4 stars. I recommend it. I think she's an excellent writer, especially for historical fiction. Like, you can tell she really puts in the time and research into everything that she writes. She would be my historical fiction author recommendation. If you want to explore that genre, or if you don't know where to start, if you are interested in the World War II historical fiction, I do recommend Kate Quinn. That is my September wrap up. Let me know in the comments down below if you have read any of these, what your thoughts are. I would love to know. Don't forget to give me that thumbs up and smash that subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on any of my upcoming bookish content. And as always, happy reading, and I shall see you in my next video. Cheers.